on Montana Days.
And along with Joe Montaldo, we co-host a new show called News on the Flip Side. You can catch us every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central, where we will be discussing current events and topics going on in the world today. We have opinions on everything. There's no topic that we won't discuss, and we'll go places that other shows wouldn't dare. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can catch it here, News on the Flip Side, only on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome to the Mind Cemetery. This is where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest. As always, we will do our best every week to delve into the unexplained, weird, intriguing, and sometimes creepy topics you won't hear on your local news. I'm your host, Chip, and along with me is my co-host, Nicole. You can catch the Mind Cemetery every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern for 2 hours exclusively here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. If you like what you hear, then subscribe to us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter by searching Mind Cemetery. You can also find us on iTunes by searching UFO Paranormal Radio Network, listen to our archives on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network main page, and go deeper into the archives by searching for the Mind Cemetery at talkradio.com. You can find us online at mindcemetery.com. While on our site, you will find our show calendar to see who we will have on as a guest in the near future. Check out the strange news feed, peruse our extensive archive of past shows in our archive blogs, track UFO activity via the Alien Stalker, and as always, be sure to check out the critically acclaimed, often imitated but never duplicated MindCemetery.com blog, where you can get information on upcoming shows, information on past shows, and plenty of interesting nuggets and tidbits that are blogged about throughout the week. You can join the discussion in the UFO Paranormal Radio Network chat room on Pal Talk, or call in to ask your favorite hosts and guests your own questions on our show hotline. That number is 504-273-7379.
Yes, and thank you for joining us again here on a beautiful afternoon. Not really too beautiful down here in Raleigh, North Carolina, but, you know, it was a decent weekend with St. Patrick's Day and all. A whole lot of drama this weekend, but, you know, we're here and still kicking. Thanks for joining us tonight, and as I said earlier in the promo, our phone lines are open tonight, so if anybody wants to call up and ask me or our guest, Dr. Rita Louise, any questions, feel free to, 504-273-7379, and I'll rattle it off even faster so you can't write it down in time, so don't worry, you won't catch it. Or you can just go to UFO Paranormal Radio Network and see it on the homepage right there, or the Homestead homepage. There you go. And yes, Joe is right. It is like the top 5. When you just Google UFO Paranormal, boom, it's there. I always check him when he says that stuff. You know, you gotta check them. Or else people will tell you anything. So, I am doing it alone again tonight. I probably will be doing it alone for the rest of the time here. So, yeah, pretty much the rest of the time that there is a show. So, I'm not sure if Nicole will be joining us anymore on the Mind Cemetery. So, that kind of stinks, you know, so I don't have anybody to badger who is a non-believer here, or a denialist, because she's not even like a skeptic, it's just a denialist, right? Or at least was. She's denying the show exists now, off her resume, evidently. But, let's see, what do we have? Congratulations to Jeffrey Pritchett from Church of Mavis for being the ICAR state director for the great state of Florida, the land of sweat and mosquitoes. That's horrible. And hurricanes that wreck everything, like hurricanes should. So yeah, he just got the bump up there, and welcome Citizen Sane to the network. Sasha Christie and Guy Weddle back on the airs bi-weekly on Friday nights, so keep checking the schedule there and see what Friday they'll be on. And we are getting a ton of new shows on the network. Not a ton, but at least a few, and a lot of things are shuffling around. So somewhere along the line, hopefully an updated show schedule and calendar and all that stuff will come out. And when it does, we'll let you know. You'll be the last to know. Let's face it. So, that's it. Good job, Jeff. And good luck down there in Florida. You're going to need it. Hopefully no more skunk apes eat your cats. He loves it when I say that to him. King of the Gators. That's right, Para. So, tonight's guest we have with us, Dr. Rita Louise. She is the host of her own radio show, Just Energy Radio, over on Inception Radio Network. And she is also the author of a new book called Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. We will be talking about all kinds of stuff as usual here. It's a rudderless ship as usual, and we just fly by the seat of our pants out here. So, Rita, welcome.
It doesn't help when you mute the mic just to be sure, and then you can't get back to the screen.
Right, the scramble.
It's like, wait. But I'm here. Hey, Chip, thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, thank you very much for coming on. I know we had to do a reschedule time of our second child's birth in February, so I know it's a royal pain in the butt to reschedule everything. I can't stand doing it. I hate asking it. How do you feel about reschedules on your show?
Well, I don't mind if the person wants to reschedule in advance of the show, but when I get I go live tomorrow, or it's first thing in the morning, they're like, well, can I reschedule? Then I get a little pissy. Because now I'm in the 11th hour rush, and I can't, roll it into my schedule of finding a new guest. And I've already just spent months advertising their appearance, and they're not going to be here.
Yeah, that is for sure. Yeah, and that's the worst part of it, is having to scramble at the end to talk about something. So that's where, in my case, I like to use Google Reader and just hit the RSS feeds and see what's out there and just roll with it. Or if there's something I heard on another show or, in the news or something like that, we'll just talk about. Or the old favorite, taking callers.
See, I don't take callers on my show.
No?
Nope.
Yeah, it is kind of a pain. I don't think we really screen them or anything like that either. That's what's crazy about it. You always think, you're going to get screened and stuff when you call like a regular terrestrial show or a radio show. And it doesn't happen in internet radio.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't even say it, but I do certain kinds of work. How's that? And so I've had situations where I was like interviewing Edgar Mitchell, having this whole conversation about the moonwalk and all this stuff, or we were having a conversation on a different show about Civilization X, the culture that predated the Egyptians, and people would call up and go, can I get a reading?
Classic.
I'm like, are you listening to the show at all? Obviously not.
You just came on to ask that, huh? I'm talking about the moon, and you want a reading.
Yeah. It's like, I don't really want to do that right now. I'm trying to host a show, thank you.
That's right. You got all kinds of stuff going on. So you got random people all over the place hassling you for stuff at the wrong time, That happens, And yeah, how long have you been Just Energy Radio?
We have completed our 6th year.
6?
Broadcast, yeah.
Nice. Does it ever get old?
No. Because, I just feel so blessed with the people that come on the show, and then they want to come back, and they're always really great conversations. And, I learn a lot. I think my listeners learn a lot. I have a lot of fun. I'm pretty goofy most of the time, and so you just never know what's going to happen.
That's right. Yeah, that is the best part. Like, how do you usually go in with like loaded questions or a list of questions, or you just freeform it?
I mean, I always have a list of questions, at least a handful, just to kind of keep me a little on track of a topic. And then sometimes I even use them.
There you go. Nice, even better, right? Put that
well,
pen to
and I'm
paper.
sure you've experienced it where you have a guest who they're not real talkative.
Yeah.
And so you're like, so that list of questions really does help in the 11th hour.
Yeah, definitely. I just had a guy on last week that we did pretty good with, Robert Lindsay. He's like a Bigfoot blogger, and I don't do a whole lot of Bigfoot in general. I don't even think he exists, flesh and blood. I don't jump on board with the Bigfoot crowd, let's put it that way. I just think the logistics alone of it make it infeasible, How can something 8 foot, 400 pounds be wandering around out there and not leave a trace, You can't see anything that he's been eating, which, by the way, he'd be eating all day, This thing is a fuel-burning machine out there, and there's nothing, not to mention the static population level that would have to be out there to make this thing viable, I just don't get on board. So anyway, I had him on, and not really much of a talker, like you were saying, and but it just seemed like it really blew up. It really was a big show, and I was like, wow, and that's something that's surprising in that sometimes I'll think, well, that show wasn't really too swift, and then a couple days later, I'm like, holy cow, that really was better than I thought. You ever have those kind of shows?
Oh, yeah. Or, actually, it sounds even worse. I'll have a guest scheduled, and I'm like, I don't know. The topic sounds okay, but, it's not really floating my boat, but I think it's an interesting topic. And, sometimes the guests turn out to be so freaking phenomenal, and what they bring to the table just blows me away. And I'm like, wait, what about this? Wait, what about this? And I think that is really, really cool.
Yeah. I got there's a guy out that I'm having back, Thomas Fusco, and I don't know.
I know Thomas.
Yeah, wow, I loved having him on the first time, and I'm getting ready to have him back on another time, and I'm like, his whole theories about the manipulation of gravity in paranormal and UFO experiences, like, love it, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's great to have different ideas out there, that aren't just the same rehashing of, the old guard, as I like to call them,
Mm-hmm.
The good old boy club, I guess it is. And I'm used to that down here in North Carolina, so deal with that constantly. I'm looking around, I'm like, does anybody notice something about all these people that are our bosses and administrators? Little bit of an accent here. I get the picture, folks. I see what's going on. I'm a damn Yankee, and you hate me.
Well, but I think, North Carolina is one of those places that a lot of people have started migrating to.
Yeah, and that's what makes it even worse, I think, is that, it's a huge migration here, and yet it still hasn't filtered up to the top of some organizations, and it's just even more telling, It's just the biggest review. I was telling a guy from New York, I was like, don't worry, it's the new way to discriminate against us, It's the cool way. He doesn't have a twang in his voice. Screw him. Let's go get some sweet tea.
Yeah, but see, you don't have like that heavy of an accent, or at least not in my opinion.
No. It's gone away for sure. I come from Chicago, so it's definitely worn down from being down here. That's for sure.
I live in Texas, and I'm from New York, and so when I go home, they make this comment that I have this, like, Southern thing going on, and I'm like, I do? It's like, no one down there says it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just say, hey, where are you from? New York City? No.
Classic. Yeah, and my wife, Nicole, does have the accent, that's for sure. She did more growing up down here than anything. I think they moved down here when she was like 10 or 12 or something like that, so, it definitely shines through when she talks. Mm-hmm. And gets upset. But anyway, I'm good at doing that. I do that really well. But let's see. We were saying before the show that we both got started on Blog Talk there, which is a great venue right there. And, I haven't that pretty much killed, doing that. I don't update that at all, but I've still got like a link on our show, or on the show's website that you can go back to so people can get like the Blog Talk archives so they can go back and find that stuff easily, I don't think that'll ever, well, I don't want to say it'll never go away, but I haven't gotten an email saying, hey, since you haven't upped your subscription in a while, we're going to dump all your archives, So, who knows how long that'll stick around. Get it while you can, folks, and it's free.
Really? It's free. We like free.
Yes. It's the internet. Everyone loves free, right?
Well, and I think, with everything that's going on, in the government and economically, free's a lot better. I mean, I think people are, if they have to make a choice between keeping their internet or keeping their cable, they're keeping their internet.
Yeah. And that's something I'd definitely do first because, frankly, when it comes to the TV, you're only watching maybe 5 shows, 6 shows a week, and it's all TiVo'd, I guess nobody has TiVo anymore. It's all just DVR from whatever cable provider you have, Hopefully it's not like Comcast or Time Warner, for God's sakes. I don't have Cox down there.
I have Verizon.
Ah, there you go. Even for cable?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
I live in this one little area where the choice is Verizon or Verizon or Verizon or Verizon. But, Verizon has Fios, and the other choice would be Time Warner, which...
Gah. I used to have, complain about Comcast up north, and it's like, Time Warner is much worse, than them. But we switched to Uverse, AT&T Uverse, so...
Yeah, see, we're not in the Uverse area.
As soon as you get it out there, I'm sure, they'll be scrambling.
Oh, no, if I lived a block away, I could get it. I just can't.
Wrong zip code, right? Or wrong side of the street, I should say.
I mean, all right, so this is going to sound really weird. So, like, my ex-husband lived, like, a block from me. Like, if I went out of my street, I could see the street that he turned on. It was that close. And, but he couldn't get Verizon. He could only get Time Warner. And he also lived in a dead zone for AT&T, Uverse. I was like,
Nice, classic. There you go. So when did you put out Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods? When did that get published here?
So that got published or released in October.
There you go.
And, we have just been so happy and I'm going to say overwhelmed with the response we've gotten from people with, you put something together, you write something, and you just don't know how people are going to take it, whether they think it's going to be any good or bad or, and people, the feedback that we're getting from a lot of people is that it is a paradigm buster, because it just takes all of this information that people know little bits and pieces about and kind of sticks it all in one place and goes, well, this is what the information says, and now make your own decision. And you kind of have no choice but to, make a decision. And it seems kind of basic, like it becomes a very easy decision to make, versus trying to organize all of this stuff in your head and, have the rationale as to why, the concept of ancient aliens is a possibility.
Oh, completely. And that's what kills me, that a lot of people want to foo-foo the ancient alien idea, and it's just, how can you? There's some things that are just obviously out of place in our ancient past that, shouldn't be there. There's, what do they call it? I can't remember, the machine with the gears and all that kind of stuff that they found underwater. What was that thing called?
I know what you're talking about. See, now you mentioned it, I can't even think about it.
Oh, what was that? Yeah. Anyway, but,
that thing. That's how I handle it. Oh, that thing.
Yeah. It's something that, for the time that they're saying it existed, shouldn't have been able to be manufactured, let alone, the gears in it shouldn't have happened like that. Maybe somebody in the chat room can help us out with that. No, of course not. They're all not helpful.
It's like the anti-catheric.
Yes.
Something like that, but that's not the right word.
It was all rusted up. But yeah, that's like a perfect example of something that's completely out of place in ancient history. And people still are wondering, well, how did it get there? Well, obviously someone knew something better and sooner than we all thought. Hello, shattering your belief system again.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what we did in this book is that we took a very specific look at mythology, because it took us back further in time than any of the archaeological sites on the planet. That was and these are stories that people were telling about that time, whatever period of time. But one of the things that we discovered is that when you start looking at these stories, they aren't different stories in different cultures. They're the same stories in different cultures, but the names of it have been changed. And the narrative, even though there are some areas that are different, like culturally different, or they might forget this detail while this other group includes this detail, but they're the same, And so what we did in putting this together was we looked for story narratives, So one of the narratives, this was the one we started with and really got us launched into the book, was Noah's flood. Mm-hmm. And so we took all the stories that were of Noah's flood and said, okay, here are all of these stories, and if you look at what happened and why there was a flood and the people that survive and the entire, they're identical. Now, the chances of local floods happening around the world having their story be identical is astronomical. I mean, it's just not going to happen at all. And that was kind of like an eye-opener, because we thought that they would, by nature, be different. By nature. And so we decided to go to, literally in the beginning and start moving forward in time. And even the first lines of the creation narrative in different cultures around the world all start out basically the same way. I mean, it's really interesting that there's not even a difference in the first, sentence, which is just really kind of bizarre. I mean, okay, so other than in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, okay, we decided we were going to take out that sentence out of the biblical narrative, because it's kind of like an introduction to the story that's going to happen. But if you, Genesis 1:2, for example, it says, now the earth proved to be formless and waste, and there was darkness upon the surface of the watery deep, and God's active force was moving to and fro over the surface of the water. Okay, so that's Genesis. But then I'm going to read a African creation myth. In the beginning, there was only darkness, water, and the great god Boomba. And now I'm going to jump down to an Aztec creation myth. The Aztec believed that in the beginning of the world there was nothing but darkness. One great god named Ometol watched over this darkness in complete solitude. And it just goes on and on and on with these stories all talking about this darkness, this void, this water, which was really interesting. And so we kind of used that methodology to scan myths and look for, these parallel concepts and go, well, all right, so this story is talking about a golden age, for example. And this story makes reference to a golden age. And when you start grouping them together based on it's a story about the golden age, the stories are all kind of the same, I mean, they're different, but they're the same. So what we found is by using kind of the Sumerian, the Greek, the Popol Vuh, which is Mesoamerica, and some of these other texts that were bigger, longer, they were more descriptive. We were able to kind of put together a like Excel spreadsheet and start taking these subordinate myths and plugging them in, and it really kind of gives you some different perspective on stories that we were familiar with, but didn't really take these other things into consideration, if that makes sense. But some of the things that they bring in are like, get out of town. Really interesting.
All right. Now, I know a lot of the stories all started the same, like you were saying, and I just have to, I don't know if it's play devil's advocate or play the role of the naysayer in it, and I'm not, but I'm just posing the question out there.
That's
because,
okay, yeah.
What if that all these stories started with the darkness and the void and the water just simply because it's a good place to start from ground zero type thing? You know what I mean? Like as if they came from, coincidentally, all real good storytellers who started from nothing, so they can build on from there. Has anything like that kind of run through your thought process in the origin of man stories or the history of the earth type thing? Well, kind of along the lines of, wouldn't it just make sense to start with nothing like this so everyone jumps on the bandwagon of saying that? And then we get to talk about how can that possibly happen throughout every culture, you know?
Well, I mean, I hear your point.
Yeah.
And if it was the isolated incident, then it would be one thing. But it just doesn't seem happenstance that they're all talking about water. Like, I could see darkness maybe, but why a void? And if these stories were written by primitive people making up a science fiction story, as many people like to believe, then why weren't they, there are so many things that you could pick from, For example, in the, one of the places we don't find that narrative comes out of Norse tradition. And it talks about where and I'm kind of paraphrasing here,
sure.
That the world was covered with ice, and, as the ice started to melt, the giant Ymir emerged. And after him was this cow who licked the ice off of him, you know what I mean? And so that one was just kind of way out compared to the of narratives that we found, talking about creation. And so the Norse creation story actually is kind of one of the outlier stories that starts in a completely different area.
Yeah, it's the exception to the rule of the creation stories, that's for sure. But yeah, those are, you're right, and it's the exact use of the same words, even, that everyone uses, and that's the giveaway, that's the tell that it's all legit in one way, shape, or form, I mean, what's even more amazing is how they have the same story, period, I mean, there's the same flood story in one way, shape, or form. It's like, how does that happen from, like you were saying, somebody in, primitive South America, in the Aztec, Mayan world, and then over in Europe, or Africa? How does that happen? Especially back then, when they're not supposed to be knowing even each other exists 10 miles away, for God's sakes, supposedly, right? And that's something that I've tackled in other shows when it's the challenge of understanding the primitive man brain and deciphering what they're trying to tell us. You know what I mean? When it comes to flying discs and fire wheels and things like that, So that's always the challenge of the interpretation part of it, and it can go in 1,000 different directions by countless nefarious individuals that want to form it into whatever narrative they want to sell their book or do whatever, or movie and whoever it is. And that's, going to happen no matter what. The show carnival of the biz we're in, I guess I like to call it sometimes, and that's fine to go along on that trip with some people, but, you got to know the difference between individuals that are sideshow barkers and then the ones that are actually researchers and investigators, and put your weight more into whoever you choose, but don't be surprised when you're, found out that you backed the wrong pony in the end, and don't be afraid to change which pony you back,
Oh, but so many people are just invested into their belief systems that it's just not even funny. And, I mean, one of the things that we were very careful in this book in doing was relating our finds. This is what the myths say. This is, and what was interesting and kind of talking to what you just said, by bringing in some of these other myths, it kind of answered the story without us saying, well, this is what it is. And we went through a great extent to not come out and say, well, this is what it is. I mean, we would ask questions and say, well, could the giants that escaped, God, my brain is just really not functioning all that great right in the moment. Could the rebel giants that, left their home world, could they be the ones, that are talked about over here? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm taking this body of evidence and then kind of summarizing it into some leading questions. But that's a really different thing than saying, well, this rebel group of giants did this like it's a fact, because it's not a fact. We don't know, and all we can do is take this evidence and try to interpret it the best we can.
And that's the best way to go about that kind of stuff, is to just lay out information for people, ask intelligent, intuitive questions that Joe Blow the Ragman, as I like to call him, would ask, or we would hope they would ask, instead of immediately doing the Giorgio thing, saying it's, always aliens.
It's aliens.
And then lo and behold, you become your own internet meme, and away you go, and you completely succeeded in, kind of marginalizing yourself, unfortunately, at a certain point, because you really caught something in your first season, and, he really did. He really caught everybody's attention, and then it just kind of, right out the window, and hello to the tours, and playing to the convention crowds then, if you want to do. But, it's, you need to come up with something else different if you're always going to say it's just aliens, kind of, a one-trick pony, in my opinion, but I'm sure, a lot of people have different opinions, and there's nothing wrong with that,
He's not the worst.
Oh, no.
Because people look at Giorgio and they go, it's Giorgio.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love him to death, so there's totally not a slam against him, because I love him to death, but, it's Giorgio. Yeah. I hate to say this, but there are so many people that are like Sitchenites. I mean, I don't even know what else to call them, that they wrap their whole interpretation of antiquity around what Zecharia Sitchin said, and have not taken the time to do any homework or research on his reporting, or read the Sumerian material themselves, and make any kind of determination, and because the Sumerian is just one perspective. It's not the only perspective, and it's not the most inclusive perspective. And I think the only way you're really going to get the big picture is to, have a wide view, because, different cultures are going to edit and sculpt the narrative to fit their political agenda. I mean, they make that same comment about the Bible after the Nicene Council, that it was sculpted to meet their agenda. And we find the same thing in reading, the ancient mythology that comes out of these other cultures, is that, some of it, especially, things from the higher level civilizations, were sculpted to fit their civilizations. So
no, that's for sure. They've got to lay it in line with their audience. Just like everybody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. And definitely, in the hierarchy of people that you should point to as saying they're wrong or bad or anything like that, Giorgio's not even a blip on the radar. That's for darn sure. He's just a general fun individual. He's not out there to. There's no maliciousness to him. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like that at all. Especially in light of some of the other individuals out there that are just so dead set in protecting their product, and that's pretty much what I call it. At this point with some of them. And that's fine. If that's what they want to do, and that's what their audience likes, then play to your crowd, right?
Well, but the scary part to me is that people will write something and other people will read it because it's written in a way that says this is a fact, and so other people take it as a fact, and then they will go and base their work on a premise that is wrong, or not 100% correct.
That's where it really goes wrong and bad, is when you have researchers basing it on bad research to begin with. You know what I mean? The followers of the individuals that are not too great are one thing, but then when it actually gets disseminated to disciples of them, you're right, it does get worse. Basically, it can get worse, Well,
it can get worse. I mean, and I'm going to state a very specific example. The gold.
Yeah.
That was, according to Sitchin, why the Anunnaki came here, to get the gold. And in working on the book, I just kind of figured that's what they came here for the gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the old story of the Anunnaki saving their atmosphere with dust and dust gold and all that good
all
stuff.
All that. Chip, I spent at least a month, no lie, a month, 10 to 12 hours a day, to the point that one day I got in my car to go to the post office or something, and I was so bleary-eyed that I could barely see the street lights or anything because I was just glued to my computer looking for the gold, looking through, translations of Sumerian tablets. Now, granted, are all of them translated and available to read in English? I don't know. What I could find, never found a mention of gold. Not in a mining sense of the word. Looked up, gold mining. I looked up anything that could lead me to support. Because if I couldn't find the support from some other source of a claim, that told me they were just, pulling it out of their butt. Anyway,
so
but I was so convinced that it was there, and there's one other person that I will leave nameless that puts out the comment about antiquity and gold, and everything that you look online, it comes from one or two sources. Sitchin or this one other source, but the other source, especially when talking about monatomic gold, that other source is a bunch of BS too. And that one took me a long time to run down to find out that what they were using for translations was made up.
Oh, wow. Yikes. What's interesting about about the Anunnaki story there, a long time ago, we're talking in the 90s, right, when I was writing, I think, one of my first research papers or something like that in college. I did it on UFOs and aliens, and I remember doing, of course, the Roswell and the Anunnaki story. And back then, there wasn't, make it sound like it's so long ago, but, there wasn't, the expanded internet that is now. There wasn't, it was like a new thing to annotate from a website. It was how do we do this and all that kind of stuff. I remember, we're using our email system for Ball State at the time was a black screen, green letter, like old IBM looking Apple computers. You know, it was just crazy. You know, thinking what we were using. This is like in '95. You know, and it's like nobody understands that now. That's actually in school now. What the heck, you know? But I remember like the books that they actually had in Ball State's library to reference was, and I remember one specifically was like an Unexplained Mysteries book. You know, from like Time Warner, you know, that you used to see on TV, them advertise that encyclopedia set, you know, and I was like, I can't believe I'm using this for a reference, you know, and now I'm thinking that, you know, but at the time I'm like, here it is, you know, and it's just like you said, you know, the whole Anunnaki gold story in there, you know, the Roswell story I'm pulling out of there, and it's like, wow, and I remember putting two and two together about the Roswell story. That it, you know, happened in July, and my birthday's in July too. So I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." But yeah, it was. And I wish I had a copy of that somewhere today, but it's all gone. And
your paper or yeah.
Either any of this stuff. You know, I would have taken Unsolved Mysteries copy any day. You know, a copy of that book. You know, because that thing was incredible. You know, it's kind of like it's the paperback version of In Search Of.
I think those books you can still find them.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'll have to look on Yahoo eBay. There we go. The old classic. See if that's out there. Maybe Amazon. Who knows? But I definitely referenced all that back then, and then completely dropped the subject for years and years and years, and you know, just got back into it. You know, 2-3 years ago with the show here now, you know, so, but yeah, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle on the Sitchenites, you know, and all that kind of stuff. You know, you'd think you just spit on someone's mother, you know, when you go after him, that's for sure. And I don't get it, because like you said, you sit down and you do the work and you look and you dig and you go through the same text and it's not there, you know.
I mean, you know, and I don't want to totally diss his work,
sure,
you know, because he had some pretty good stuff and a good starting point for a lot of things. I mean, but it's just endemic. I mean, having my own show, I've had lots of people on, and some of the theories that people come up with are like, huh? But they don't propose it as a theory. You know, if they say, well, what I think, I'm okay with that. Yes. This is how it is, and they will just knock you down and, you know, all right, I'll share this with you and your listeners. I mean, one of the things that I've been getting hit with is a lot of people just really being freaking mean and attacking. It's like, well, what do you think about this? It's like, it can't be that way. Like, well, I didn't say it can't be that way. I was just asking you if you don't agree, then, you know, either don't agree or shut up, but don't, like... come out and say, well, you're stupid, this is how it is. It's like, no, not stupid. Probably read way more than you. Thank you.
Nothing good's going to start with, dear idiot, you know? And we're done, you know? Yeah, it's pretty much over. But yeah, you're right, and that's I don't know. That's like the sideshow nature of the whole field, though, is that people think that, well, I think that plus the internet and, you know, email and message boards and all that kind of stuff. It's a Wild West show out there, and everybody just says what they want, and, you know, oh, you're a quack and a kook, and you don't know nothing, and Sitchin's did a lot of good work, and all, you know, and then, you know, to their favorite watering hole for, you know, whatever information they want to get to run with, and away we go, and that's why I always like to tell people, man, I love me some story time too. You know, I love all that kind of stuff. I love, you know, Obama to Mars and cat people on Mars and breakaway Third Reich society, UFOs coming to take over the world. I love it, you know, but right about that time you actually start trying to make me believe it's real because you're trying to make yourself and your listeners or your followers believe it's real. I'm done. You know, that's the part where I can't stand you then, you know. But, yeah, that's what kills me is, like, you know, I hope I hope it's like wrestling, you know. I hope it's lights are on, cameras are on, mics are on, it's game on. And then when it's off, we're back to being a normal human being and everything's cool. Let's go have a drink and dinner and call it a day, But when it all comes back on, we're duking it out. But it's not. It's definitely not like that, because it would be cool if it was like that. It'd be fine to do that we can all just, it'd be like punching the clock, that here we go. And when you're done, we all know, you're full of crap. I know I'm full of crap. Hey, it was a good day, See you tomorrow.
Hey, wait, I'm not full of crap. Only you're full of crap.
Yeah, all day, and it makes for great conference debates and radio debates and all that kind of stuff, And I'll tell you what, I don't know, were you on Inception when they had John Alexander and Richard Dolan debating?
I think I came on just after that. I moved to Inception in October.
Okay. Last year? Oh, okay. Yeah, it was. Yeah, maybe it was in the summer. I can't remember what it was, but oh man, he just Dolan works circles around Alexander, and well, I mean, I think Alexander's like one of the biggest spooks out there. He's got some ties with Robert Bigelow and that whole. And that's enough for me to say I'm okay. I'm done with you. You're going to sit and tell me UFOs have been disclosed for years and all this other kind of shenanigans. I know you're out there muddying the water, So
they've been disclosed for years on TV?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah, all that stuff, was real. So,
Well, I mean, and it really forced us with the book to not even touch many contemporary writers. Many. All right, all of them. How's that? Unless we could find like multiple, quadruple verification of stuff. I really have this great appreciation of these turn-of-the-century writers. I mean, there was this one book, and I just won't ever forget it. It was in my Looking for the Gold. I read this book called The Ancient Gold Mines of Rhodesia. Except he didn't date them back any 200,000 years in time. I mean, he didn't date them back that far. But regardless of the dating, he's just talking about, the quality of the different sites, because there are multiple sites and things that they found. And it was just very matter of fact. And then he would throw in, well, and at this site, they found the skeleton of some giants, and then he would just move on.
Oh, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, and there are these giants.
There's an 18, and here's Tom with the weather, Like it's nothing. That's something that I haven't done a show on yet, is the giants and Nephilim. I was going to wait until get about guy Scotty Roberts on to talk about that, but that is one of the most...
I have some very different opinions on that.
Oh, okay. I know, I just mentioned that because I know Jeff Pritchett has had him on plenty of times on Church of Mavis, so I'm like, you know what, I've heard him a few times, I might as well do that. But I guess, we can talk about that. I'm sure we probably can't get into that before the break here at the top, but we'll talk about that next hour then.
But yeah. My part isn't all that long, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, when you read mythology, it is very clear that so there was a race of gods who had children, and I'm going to use the Greek story because I think it's just the easiest. And so during one of the first battles that occurred based on mythology, Kronos, the god Kronos, castrates his father Uranus, and according to Greek mythology, the castrated Uranus fell onto the earth and created the Earthborn, the giants. And so these giants are related to us that they were the 7 to 9, 12 foot. They were those giants versus the Titans, who were the giants, that were big enough to pick you up and bite your head off. And so there is enough mythology to support that prior to the creation of mankind, there was a race of giants that lived on the earth. On the earth, not under the earth, not in the sky, but on the earth. And, and then mankind is created because it was the giants who rebelled. In Sumerian mythology, I relate them to the Ajiji. They were the ones doing all of the work, and they rebelled. And so based on the rebellion of the Ajiji, the lesser gods, then they decided to make mankind. So to have it be where the sons of God mating with the daughters of men created the Nephilim, the giants, it don't work. I mean, it just flat doesn't work timeline-wise, because the giants existed prior to mankind being created. See where I'm going with that?
Yeah, exactly. The time don't add up, you know. The horse came before the cart right there.
You know, but, you know, what the biblical story does tell us is that, you know, the byproduct of that union were the men of renown. And during that period, what does fit well into that time period is the demigods. You know, the half-man, half-god, so Hercules and Perseus and groups like that. Now, what's interesting, because no one really ever looks outside of the Bible, is that I found a parallel myth that came from a different culture that actually supports this idea. And so in the Ramayana, Rama, who is the major character of the book, his wife gets kidnapped by the evil demon god of Lanka. And so he spends half the book, other than whining a lot, but trying to get, he's a big whiner. He kind of kills you, trying to get his wife back. And so he meets up with the Vanir, who were these half men, half ape. They were the ape men. Okay, interesting. But there's a whole story that goes with them. And so Rama supposedly lived during the Treta Yuga, which was about 1.7 million years ago. So what's interesting is that coincides with the advent of Homo erectus man. It was decided, or the gods knew, that Rama was going to have to fight this demon god at some point in time. And so Vishnu called to all of the other gods, you know, and said, I want you to go down and mate with the apes and the bears to create this race that will help Rama in his war. And so all of the gods came down and had relations with the animals, the apes and bears on the earth, and created these demigods, these Vanir. And so if your god was the god of wind, you were fleet of foot. If your dad was the king, you know, the god of architecture, you had the understanding and ability to build great things. You know, because at one point in time, these Vanir construct a bridge that go from India to Lanka, which they think still exists. Anyway, you know, but that narrative of these demigods, but it would also explain where the big change, you know, like what they're always talking about, the missing link, you know, so if this thing happened at the advent of taking Homo hablatus and upgrading him to Homo erectus, it would just make sense. And they didn't make giants. They made ape men. Oh, wait a minute. That would be us.
Would it be Bigfoot?
There is a possibility that Bigfoot sits over there somewhere. You know what I mean? There is enough, I will say it this way, there is enough mythology to support the existence of Bigfoot.
Just throwing curveballs. Just throw a curveball at you, Rita.
No, but I'm like, no, not Bigfoot, not Bigfoot. You know, but no, there is enough mythology to support that there could be, you know, that creature living somewhere.
And I'm on board as long as, you know, we talk about its paranormal ability, so to speak. I guess there's no other way to put it, you know, because there's. And I know that's far-fetched in itself, but, you know, I'll go down that path for a little while. With zero evidence to back it up, by the way. No. You know, at least I'll tell people, you know. But we've got 2 minutes left to go here, Rita. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can listen to your show and where they can find your book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods.
Well, okay. And so they can find my book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, on my primary website, which is www.soulhealer.com. That's SOULHEALER, soulhealer.com. And that's kind of the portal to everything Rita Louise, so you can get information about my 3 other books there. There's a bunch of artists. You can hit the Just Energy Radio page, although you can go to www.justenergyradio.com. You can check out the archives of the show on YouTube on the Just Energy Radio page. But yeah, I mean, if you had to remember one thing, that's soulhealer.com. But obviously, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, as well as my other books, are all available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, et cetera, but it's only if you buy it from me that it comes autographed.
Boom, right there, the bonus.
Yeah, got to upgrade it,
and we'd buy that straight off your website, thesoulhealer.com?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic, right there. And would you even put a little note in there for someone?
If they put it into the comment box so I know what they want the note to say.
There you go. It's the perfect gift right there.
Oh, yeah.
Personalized.
Mm-hmm.
I know my grandmother used to buy me books every Christmas. So, just a little side note. I know it has no bearing on our conversation.
but see, that's a good grandma. My step-grandson, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah. It's like, you aren't getting a toy. You're getting if it's a toy, it's like totally going to be educational, or something.
Yeah, and the worst part of it, while I was getting these books, I was like, and tossing them to the, socks, books, you go over there, and then it wasn't until, years later you realize that was the greatest thing I could have got. So, so we are at the top of the hour and going to take about an 8-10 minute break somewhere in that ballpark. So we will be back with Rita Louise, host of Just Energy Radio and the author of her latest book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of our Extraterrestrial Gods. Get it right, stupid, right? And we'll be back. Thank you.
Paranormal Radio Network. We delve into UFOs, abductions, ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, and cryptozoology.
And how could you ever forget about those creepy topics you won't hear on your local news?
This is where I would insert my obligatory skeptical statement. The Mind Cemetery, where the paranoia about the paranormal comes to rest.
Follow us on Twitter and subscribe to us on Facebook. Also, check us out on our website, mindcemetery.com, for show updates and the critically acclaimed Mind Cemetery blog.
It's not critically acclaimed, but you should check it out anyway, mindcemetery.com.
Hey everybody, this is Jill Marie Morris from Perspective X. If you've been searching for a variety talk radio show with an edge, then look no further. Join my co-host Stephanie Benetti and I as we get down and dirty discussing the latest hot topics and relevant newsworthy stories. Informative, engaging, and quite often controversial, Perspective X is a unique blend of insight, opinion, and wit. So tune in and listen every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. on UPRN 107.9 FM New Orleans. It's not just an opinion, it's our perspective. Perspective X.
You are listening to UPRN 107.9 New Orleans.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Benetti, and along with Joe Montaldo, we co-host a new show called News on the Flip Side. You can catch us every Saturday night, 8 p.m. Central, where we will be discussing current events and topics going on in the world today. We have opinions on everything. There's no topic that we won't discuss, and we'll go places that other shows wouldn't dare. False history gets made all day, every day. The truth of the new is never on the news, but you can catch it here, News on the Flip Side, only on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back to hour number 2, The Mind Cemetery, with your hosts, Chip and Nicole. The phone lines are open, and the number is 504-273-7379. You can join the discussion in UFO Paranormal Radio Network's Pal Talk chat room with our guests, the hosts, or give any feedback you'd like. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Visit our website, mindcemetery.com, for upcoming show news and blogs.
Welcome back after the top of the hour break, as usual, here at the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Flying solo tonight, like I said earlier. I'm pretty much going to be going solo for the rest of the existence of the show. Unless I find a co-host, who knows? You never know. I might want to let someone else do some of the heavy lifting around here for once and just, mail it in, basically. I'm looking to mail it in, basically. But, no, probably not. I like talking too much. Almost too much. But we're joined tonight by Dr. Rita Louise. She is the host of her own radio show, Just Energy Radio, over on the Inception Radio Network. She is also the author of Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, and you can find that on Amazon.com. Also on her website, soulhealer.com. And you can get it personalized and autographed if you buy it directly off of her website. So I suggest doing that instead of going to Amazon.com. If you had a choice or a preference, wouldn't you want it to get autographed? You know? And it's simple. Dr. Rita, are you back with us?
I am.
Nice.
And I'm ready to go.
Fantastic. At least that's one of us. No. No, you're getting fantastic reviews on Amazon, basically. You're killing it out there. You're not getting any bad reviews. Well, you're always going to get some clown out there that hates you. You know, you're always going to get a hater. Hater's going to hate, as they say, right?
Yeah, no kidding. And the reviews were not like, hey, go write a review for me. These were people that were like, hey, you just totally blew me away with your book. And then I would say, well, go put a review on Amazon.
Yeah, write a little something, would you?
Yeah, bump it up.
There you go. Yeah, and there's, people out there can tell the written, the paid ones and all that kind of stuff, the reviews and all that. So get out there. She's got 17 reviews overall, 4.5 stars out of 5. Good luck beating it. If you can get 5 out of 5, you probably only got 2 reviews. So... So,
and one from your mama.
Yeah, exactly. You started your mom an account on Amazon. Congratulations. But is there, let's see, how long did it take you to write the book, actually? From inception, yeah, you like that play on words there? From the inception of the idea to finish, how long are we talking here?
It took us almost 3 years to...
Now, I know you said you wrote a couple other books. Is this the most intensive one that took the longest for you?
Well, actually, I wrote a book called Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4 that looks at why we get sick from a spiritual/metaphysical perspective and really looks at ancient traditions as part of that whole thing. And that one, it took me 6 months just to figure out how I was going to start, and so I've learned a lot from that experience. That one took me just a really long time, not just the research, but you collect all of this research and then you go, now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time staring at a blank computer monitor, but I've learned and grown a lot since that book, even though it's a very good book. But it's probably the most technically written book that I have as well. It's definitely more academic versus man-made. It is not written in an academic format. And so, people that, I'm here talking and legends, and I could see where people will go, oh man, it's going to be like one of those dry, boring books that no one wants to read, but it's really not written in that kind of format. It is written in a very sassy style, so we.
And I think we just lost Dr. Rita, but I'm
here.
Yes, there we go. I just jumped on Joe when I heard it pixelating. I was like, audio,
but it doesn't. It's just a fun and easy read. How's that? I mean, we don't diminish the information. You still get all of the information. Actually, one of the biggest comments that we've gotten from people is, how did you jam so much information into a book that's not that big?
Well, you know what my answer to that would be? Is that you're not busy fluffing it up. That's why. That's how. And I think that's what a lot of people like to do, and you're just better off getting to it.
Well, yeah, and we didn't want to take people away from the point we were trying to make, because there really is kind of a, in my opinion, rhythm and flow to this storyline. And so if we took the reader off on these divergent, here we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about this guy who found this, or we're going to detour and give you this description of, Aboriginal culture, it takes away from the narrative. And we just really wanted to focus on this narrative. And so that's what we did. And so in its 250 pages, it's just jam-packed with fun stuff. I mean, it's good stuff.
There you go. Very good, very good.
And my husband would laugh. He goes, you just, I can't think of what the word is. We're both having this totally word brain dead day today. I don't know. But, he would just sit there and go, the way that you tell some of these stories, I mean, you're not changing the story, but they're just written in a kind of flippant way.
Yeah.
Well, telling the story about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, because I'm talking about, well, this is in the gold part, searching for the nectar of immortality. And, one of the things that we do find references to gold in mythology are golden apples, which comes out of Norse culture, and some other apples or whatever. And, so I just brought in the Adam and Eve story because, that's what most people believe the fruit was the apple. And so, I'm telling the story, and it's Adam and Eve are hanging out in the Garden of Eden, and, the serpent comes and tells Eve that, God doesn't know what he's talking about. Go ahead and eat this apple.
Yeah. And
so, she eats it, and she gets Adam to eat it, and then God finds out what's going on, and he confronts them all. And then Adam blames Eve blames the serpent, and they all get in trouble. You know what I mean? And that's how these stories are written, so it doesn't take away from the narrative, but they kind of bring it into a more contemporary reading of them kind of thing.
Now, when it comes to the serpent in the Garden of Evil, or Garden of Eden, yeah.
Was that a little Freudian slip?
All day. It's happening all day, all weekend. It's been interesting lately. But anyway, do you explore any of the routes where people would consider the serpent in the Garden of Eden a reptilian alien or anything like that? Do you even go down that path?
Well, I mean, we do not bring any contemporary ufology into the book.
Okay.
However, there's a huge however. It really doesn't take a giant leap or a rocket scientist to figure that out. Because in antiquity, they don't refer to these half man, half snake, half man, half fish, half man, half some kind of reptile creature as reptilian.
Yeah.
You know, but what's interesting is that these characters are always associated with fertility. You know, and so we really kind of drum in the point that, you know, if we're talking about a fertility god, we are talking about this class of beings. You know, and the gods were they were the ones that were responsible for the creation of man. They were the ones that, you know, for example, warned Noah of the flood. You know, we get that from the Sumerian because Enki was a fertility god.
Ah, nice. Well, that's always good for people. You know, not to be afraid of the reptile.
Well, and, you know, bringing it into, because it sounds like you're kind of see, I'm not a UFO person in the general sense. I mean, I can kind of talk about it, but I'm not a UFO chick. And, you know, and so, but one
you
of the
don't have to
that,
be.
You know, well, you know, you kind of get drawn into it one way or the other.
Whether you like it or not, right?
Whether you like it or not. But one of the things that was interesting, you know, coming out of contemporary ufology, there are the claims that are being made by the people that are following this whole intergalactic war between, you know, the Galactic Federation and the reptilians and whatever, that the reptilians claim that they own the Earth in the beginning. You know, and they were the fertents of the Earth. And from a mythological perspective, you know, that is what myth reveals, is that they were the original inhabitants of this planet. Period.
Yeah, that's definitely that's the whole Galactic Federation of Light story there in exopolitics is born by a certain individual is one of the things that I would put in good time, story time, and I'm all for listening to, but he is very adamant about some things, and, you know, like I said, I just hope it's a pro wrestling act, but we'll see if I ever meet these individuals in person. And, that's a good point. I see you're going to be at a conference here in about 5 days. You want to talk about that, your appearance there?
I am going to be at the Para-Unity Conference being held in Waxahachie, Texas.
Rolls right off the tongue, right?
Yeah, it does. But actually, you know, it's going to be really cool. So it is Saturday, March 23rd. I'm the first up, which I don't get, but that's okay because that's okay. And so I'm assuming the doors open at like 9 or because I speak at 10:30. But actually, it's going to be a great conference because they have a lot of really good speakers coming in for this. Because, I mean, I'll be there. So, I mean, that's worth it right there. But they have David Roundtree coming in to speak. I heard rumors that Nick Redfern might be attending.
There you go.
Ken Gearhart, the cryptozoologist, is going to be there. Lyle Blackburn is going to be there. Martha Decker is going to be speaking there. I'm trying to think. Oh, Dakota Lawrence, who's a medium, is going to be doing a gallery, and he's just so fun and cool. And I'm trying to think. There's some other people and other groups that are going to be there. They're going to be doing some kind of an investigation afterward, that people that buy tickets obviously can participate in the investigation afterwards. It's just going to be a lot of fun, and it's for a good cause. They are doing it for breast cancer research.
Cool. You know what? That is actually the first time I've ever heard, like, a paranormal conference actually donating their proceeds, or some of, at least to a you know, decent cause like that, actually. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, there have been these Para-Unity fests that have been, you know, or different in the paranormal world. We've been seeing it quite a bit, you know, like 1, maybe 2 a year of these different groups putting on events to aid some kind of group. I did one last year or the year before, and it was not much before the beginning of the holiday season, and so they donated the money to a food bank. Yeah, so that
fantastic.
was really cool.
Especially now, because, you know, you hear nothing but food banks being, low on supplies for everybody all over the country,
Well, I mean, I don't even like listening to the news. My husband has that flip book thing on his phone, app on his phone. And so every morning he'll like go through that, and I just come in. It's like, okay, so anything juicy that you need to tell me about, because you are my number one news source.
There you go.
Because other than that, I don't really want to know, because it's kind of scary. Some of the stuff that's going on. I mean, like that stuff that's going on in Cyprus, where there was like a run on the money, and they loaned the bank the money, gave them bailout money, and then they said, oh, well, all of your depositors are going to have to pay 6% out of their deposited money. Yikes. It's like, no, I'll put the money under my sofa. Yeah. Before you come and take 6%. And apparently that's what happened, is that, people just started yanking their money out of the bank.
Crazy. Yeah. Instant failure. There you go. Yeah, Waxahachie there is just south of Dallas, and it's only $20, general admission. I mean, honestly, you can't spend a better $20, really. I mean, you're going to get to see, of course, Dr. Rita Louise right out the gate in the morning.
We're going to be talking about myth, underground bases, and the alien agenda. So, see, I am doing a UFO thing, which is really bizarre for me. Yeah. But it's more of like a myth UFO thing, not really like a straight UFO thing.
Yeah, I get you. I'm a big fan of the underground base UFOs and the Dulce, New Mexico stuff, and I'm sure you know all about that. And Norio Hayakawa, he's a good time. I don't know if we've had him on your show yet or anything, but yeah, good stuff. Mm-hmm. Definitely, gotta love it. Yeah, I love I've seen the YouTube videos out there, some of the stuff, but the guy talking about having fights with aliens and all that, and like I said, it's like UFO porn to me. When I get it's story time for that kind of stuff, I'm like, oh, this is the stuff right here, And then back to reality, of course. It's like, well, we've got nothing but a guy telling the story, so good luck. Good luck verifying any of this.
Well, and then there's all the material that is coming in from channeled sources that, what's with that? Yeah. Because you don't get the same story from two people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, for the most part. And that's something I want to talk to you, too, is about your medical intuitive work. Go ahead and tell us about that. When did you get started with that? When did you learn you had the intuitive gift, or what do you like to call it? Because I know everybody likes to call it something different.
I mean, I don't have a problem with using the P word, psychic.
Okay.
I joke around and say, well, I came out of the psychic closet years ago. But now I live in Texas, so I've actually kind of backed off and used intuition quite a bit more than I used to. But I became interested in psychic phenomena, even though it was called ESP, when I was a kid. Yep. And it was something that I wanted to learn how to do, because I thought it would just be really cool to, like, see ghostly images float around the room, although I think, I actually had, like, something appear to me in my bedroom while I was trying to, like, develop my psychic ability, and it scared the crap out of me, so I was like, maybe not that part. But anyway.
Okay.
But I just started reading and studying and, trying to learn how to do tarot cards, which I discovered there's no way I can memorize them. And astrology and, anything. I would study anything. And, so finally I found the Berkeley Psychic Institute and studied with them. And after being in their program for 3 weeks, and I discovered that I had been very psychic my whole life, but didn't know it. So if it wasn't like, one of the things that I discovered is that things that happened to me, things that I would say to people, were me having a psychic experience, weren't about, just some coincidence. So for example, I worked at this one company, and in the lab next door, there was this young guy who was my friend and his boss. And his boss was older, and so, I would go in and say hi and maybe sort of chit-chat with him a little bit, but not really.
Yeah.
And, because I was like 20, maybe. and so he didn't come into work one day, which was really weird. And so the following day, he was there, and I went into the lab, just to say my little good morning things, and I walk in, and he had the comb-over thing going on, and on his head, he had this round Band-Aid, and so I think the listeners can see my personality by now.
Yeah.
In my mind, I thought that, he had a zit up there, and it was kind of pussy, and he put the Band-Aid on there so we wouldn't have to look at it because it was probably pretty gross.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Do a favor. Yeah.
Yeah, but I walked over to him, looked him straight in the face, and went, well, where were you yesterday, having them check for a brain tumor? Face turned white, and he walked out of the room, and every hair on my body was standing on end because I knew something was going on, but I just didn't know what.
Yeah.
Well, his assistant came in screaming at me because apparently that is where he had been the day before, and the guy was mad because he thought the assistant had told me. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, she just.
But I didn't realize that was a psychic thing.
Huh. Nice. Yeah, I used to have a guy on by the name of Winter Lake who would talk about. I don't know if anyone's ever told you before you realize you had any psychic abilities about being a latent psychic or anything like that. Have you ever heard those terms thrown around at you before you started developing anything?
Well, what I realized is that they had always been there, but no one had ever connected the dots, so I wasn't late in anything. It was just like, oh, yeah, I used to know what I was going to get for Christmas. I would see people's past lives, and it was like, oh, doesn't everybody do that? Apparently not. Or at least apparently not with that kind of clarity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's definitely rare, that's for sure. So when you went into the development of your gift, how do you do like a meditation? How do you go about that for everybody out there who would consider themselves on the edge, if you will, of developing something? Would you suggest that they even go about it on their own?
I mean, it is definitely something that people can develop on their own, but to me, it's not really about meditation. To me, it's more about paying attention, and validation, and because I believe everyone has psychic abilities. Now, some people have more abilities. Some people can dance better than other people. Some people can draw better than other people. Some people have psychic abilities better than other people. But I think everybody has psychic abilities, except for this one woman that I know who I don't think she has 1 ounce of psychic. But other than her, I think everybody else does. And so, see, you can't be in that group because it's just her. But to me, it's more about validating. So, for example, and this is a really stupid example, but people get the idea. Yeah. So in the morning, you get up, and you're getting ready for work, and this little thought comes through your mind and says, maybe you should take a sweater. And you look outside, and you go, God, it's beautiful out. What do I need this sweater for? So you totally blow it off. And you get to work, and you get called into a meeting, but the room is ice cold. And you say to yourself, God, I wish I brought that sweater. And so some people will kick themselves in the butt and go, God, I really should have listened to myself or whatever. But what was happening was you were having a psychic experience. The message was you should take that sweater in the morning. And it's not about beating yourself up. It's about going, wait a minute, I did have that communication. And so next time I have that communication, well, maybe I should take the sweater. And just start listening to it and trusting it. One of the other misconceptions about it is that it is way easier, like 99.5% easier to do a reading on somebody else. I mean, people go, oh, well, if I had somebody, I could, tell myself all of this stuff, and it just really doesn't work that way. It is so much easier to read somebody else versus listening to that voice inside of us and listen to our own guidance and advice. And so if you're looking to do it just for, yourself, it's just a more challenging road to pursue. I don't want to be negative about it, but it's true. Because it's just a very different experience. When you're working with someone else, you're receiving their information and they're over there, and you don't have to get through your own judgments. You don't have to get through your own negative belief systems, because you're a third-party observer.
That's a good point that you bring up about being third-party observer and everything like that. I noticed on your upcoming guest list you have Russell Targ coming on, and everybody who has a clue will know that he has everything to do with remote viewing. And that is something that I know a lot of the remote viewers out there, that the original guys, everybody can learn it. So it leans on the lines that you were saying, that everybody's psychic in one way, shape, or form. It's just a matter of training yourself or working with it to bring it out more. And being in, I know one of the things a lot of people say, and of course there's no documentation to backing this up, but, the technology-driven world that we're in the first world, has been suppressing that for the most part from a lot of people and making it more difficult to get in touch with those kind of things, or at least less acceptable, to a lot of people, because there's more reliance on technology than spirituality, so to speak. I know that, has that been something that you've talked to him about developing, or other remote viewers, or anything along those lines? Because that's very similar.
I mean, actually, this is my first time getting Russell on the show. So,
it's difficult to get, I heard.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just kind of shocked when, one of his people contacted me. It's like, yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Like, I've been trying to get him on, because either he's writing a book or he's just really... And so, no, I'm very excited. I wish I could get him for 2 hours, but I only get him for an hour.
Only one. Well, it's better than none, right?
This is true.
This is true. And he is one of the original, one of the original government, remote viewers. So, it's good to get him on because, Ingo Swann just passed away here. These guys aren't getting younger, and you got to get them on while you can, type thing. I was lucky enough to have Philip Coppens come on before he passed, literally a month and a half, maybe tops, and that happened really quick. Have you ever had him on your show?
Yeah, I've had him on the show a couple of times, and actually met him in person.
Nice.
And hung out with him a little bit.
Cool.
No, I mean, that whole thing was just bizarre.
Yeah, it was. I
mean, because, we were hanging out with him in October, and then it was like, boom.
Mm-hmm. Whoa. Quickly. He's like, I'm in the hospital sick, and boom. That was just intense, and that, I've had, a lot of people pass away recently in my family and everything like that, and, that other one in the line of people passing, and I was like, man, every time it happens, too, you sit and think about how, you consider your own mortality every time. Mm-hmm. And you have to, and it just makes a lot of things, seem pointless. Your everyday grind when it comes to a job that, you're busy, use the office-based term, doing TPS reports that have no bearing on anything other than this is the job that pays the bills for your family, or keeps the roof over your head and the food on your table, or your car running and all that kind of stuff. So it's just it's an eye-opening experience, deaths in the family or deaths of people or, friends and stuff like that. It's really something that makes you reconsider yourself and your life, and can put you into a bit of a tailspin even,
Mm-hmm. Well, and it seems like there have been a lot of people passing recently. I mean, just, like where my husband works, he said in the last 2 months there have been 8 people. It's not a company. There's maybe 100 people that work there. But there have been 8 people that have gone out on bereavement leave. And not only for, parent, like there were a couple of parents that passed, a couple that had kids that passed, or brothers or sisters, but just 8 people out of 100. I mean, that is just a lot for a 2-month period. But it seems pretty consistent that there are just a lot of these kinds of stories, which is, I don't know, it just seems uncharacteristic.
Definitely. Now, when you do your medical intuitive sessions with people, let us know how someone can get a hold of you to do that kind of thing, because I'm interested in that aspect because my mom had MS, and this month is MS Awareness Month, and she ended up passing not because of MS, but the complications thereof. Of course, it's never the actual disease that ends up killing you. But so, how does that work out for people? How would they go about contacting you and having a session?
Yeah, that's very easy. I mean, if they go to the www.soulhealer.com webpage, and you hit the contact button, you can just shoot me an email. I tend to be an email junkie, so I do respond. And so if you don't hear back from me, check your junk mail, just in case, because sometimes it ends up in there, but I do respond. And we just set up a time. I work with people all over the world, and so whether we do it by phone, we can, I've done sessions by Skype. I've done sessions by email, which is a little bit weird. Not my favorite venue, but I've done them. And so it's just really easy to do and set up and book an appointment.
Nice.
Easy.
There you go. Have you ever helped anybody with MS specifically?
Well, I mean, medical intuition is an evaluative modality. So it's kind of like getting an MRI or, getting a test run. I mean, because that's really what it's about, is about assessing. And then when you start moving into more therapeutic aspects, we would be talking about incorporating some kind of energy work or incorporating some kind of naturopathic work or something else, but medical intuition is about looking at what's going on in the body and, giving feedback on it. One of the other aspects that I think medical intuition is wonderful about is it helps you to understand what the psychospiritual issues are that are associated with the disease. Because about 80% of the things that are wrong with us are because there is some thought or some belief that we are holding on to that is, and I'm going to get a little technical here, not allowing the free flow of energy to come into our body. And when that energy is inhibited, it creates issues in the body. So did you understand my little technical lingo there, Chip?
Yes and no. Yes, in that I understand that if to get to help yourself, you have to get out of the way, basically, of any apprehensions you may have about alternative medicine, and that's something that I'm really leaning against the mainstream pharmaceuticals. It's like all they want to do is give you a pill. They're nothing but drug dealers, and they're out to basically give you a pill that'll kill you in the end, or be worse off for you, especially in the mental health aspect of treatment. And that's something that I know there are a lot of people on mental health medication. What do they call them? What do they call them? MHO inhibitors, or I'm sure I butchered that up.
Happy pills. My husband calls them happy pills.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people that are on there that have not had any adverse effects to it. But, the human monkey is different, and it's not going to work for everybody. And in the meantime, while they're busy jacking you with a cocktail of drugs to see which works and which doesn't, you're dealing with an individual that's a roller coaster, and that's not good for anybody, and it's just a mess, when you start doing that stuff. You're better off
Not doing that?
Yeah, just choked for a second. Ugh. I was like, but you're better off trying to do things. I don't want to say you're better off doing things on your own, because that doesn't really work sometimes. You're better off at least trying, something.
But taking responsibility for your health and wellness is a very important piece of it. There are so many people that give up all of their power to their doctor and say, fix me, and take no responsibility for their own health, which includes, one of my big things is, if there are people that are overweight, and because of that they have high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever, or even just diabetes. Diabetes has to do with your body not regulating sugar correctly. Now, from a spiritual, emotional perspective, many times, and I'm making kind of a big generalization, and it can become a very specific thing for each individual, but I'm just going to make kind of a global here. Many times it has to do with us not being able to receive. So I might be able to help you all the time, but if you say, well, I'll come over and help you, you're like, or here, take this $20. There is some hesitation of taking back, receiving. It's not taking back. It's about letting someone give to you and you graciously receiving it. And so that there's usually some issue in that psychological mechanism of us that also is creating the diabetes, because that's like an area of weakness within us. But what gets me is that I know so many people that are taking diabetic medications. Okay, they're not my clients. That will go out and eat dinner and eat cheesecake after, and eat the whole loaf of bread or whatever. And it's like, don't you got diabetes? Now I can understand like cheating here and there. You go out to eat, you have a little piece of bread kind of thing. You know what I mean? I get that. And I don't mean about that, because, we have to love ourselves and be kind to ourselves. And if you're going out and, that French bread is just like calling you, why torment yourself by not having like one little piece of bread? But there are so many people that won't take responsibility and engage in their own wellness, and do what they can do to get better. It's just a sad shape of affairs. Yeah. Yeah,
that's pretty much the problem all over, though, is the accountability issue with people that have medical problems. It's something like I was watching the other day. I was watching a commercial for, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and here they are talking about how, and of course paraphrasing again, basically the reason why the costs are so high is because you're all so terrible, in such terrible health, so, fix it and we won't charge you so much. And I'm like, what? I was like, so let me get this right. You're going to sit there and blame everybody for the cost of health care being through the roof. At the same time, we're going to sit and stuff you full of GMOs and, high fructose corn syrup, and, here's your McDonald's commercial, It's just insane. It's like, well, you just, created the problem, and, you're the stopgap. You're not even the cure, Well,
I know. I think it's interesting that when you go into the supermarkets that you, or at least in Texas, unless you go to one of the high-end markets, which I don't live right by one, so it's really kind of inconvenient. The produce is awful. I'm sorry. I won't buy broccoli that just seems limp and wilted, or green beans that are just brown and nasty, and so I don't know. It's like, even if you want to take care of yourself, it seems like you almost have to go to extraordinary means to do so. And I guess it really checks on your level of commitment. I just knock on wood that I'm pretty freaking healthy. Thank God.
Yeah, for the most part, me too. You got lucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess they call it.
Yeah.
For once, right? There you go. And when it comes to man-made, the Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, what have you run into any opposition from any religious groups out there? Because I know a lot of them don't like, at least fundamentalist religions out there would consider a lot of paranormal UFO stuff, you know, they're demons, they're all demons, and they're all from the devil. My thing is, you know, what kind of opposition have you had from the religious fundamentalists out there on your book, or have you had any at all?
I work as a psychic, come on, and I do ghost hunting. My husband goes, you know, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to criticize you. It's like they've been criticizing me my whole life.
Yeah.
So, big deal. Actually, surprisingly, no. Where I seem to be running into the most criticism are people that are trapped into their alternative thought mode. One of the biggest things that I get from people, which really is kind of annoying to me, is that they make the claim, and they might be right, okay, they might be right, that the stories that come to us from mythology are, what's the word? God, it was just in my head. You are killing me here. It's like, are you sucking my brain dry?
Just killed it all day.
They are, starts with an A, you know, but these general descriptions of archetypes, that they're archetypes. And, you know, but you can't have an archetype unless it's based on something.
Exactly. It had to come somewhere.
You know, it's interesting. On Facebook, I posted 4 pictures, and each picture was a representation of a god and then people. And in each picture, the god was giant size, you know, big enough to pick you up and bite your head off size, or bigger. And I made some comment, and I'll tell you what, people were like, well, they're just archetypes. It's like, well, this was just their representation of them because they were grand and glorious. Now, why would the Egyptians and the Sumerians and the Celtics and the all represent God in the exact same way if we weren't talking about something that was a living, breathing being that they saw at one point in time that they built the archetypes on?
Yeah, and that's something that I have a hard time believing, that all these individuals, like I said, all of them separated, just decided out of the blue to come up with the same stories, you know, and the same grand ideas of, you know, where it all started, and, you know, that they all have their own different gods and stuff. It's all based on something. It had to have happened in actual contact, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know what my thing is, too, I used to say, when it comes to any like extraterrestrials or anything like that, the big giveaway for me in the Bible is just when it's simply said, you know, God created man in His own image. That's all I need right there, because in my opinion, why would God have to tell us that we look like Him? Shouldn't it be a given? You know, and my thing is, well, obviously it's not a gimme because He had to tell us, so what else did He fiddle with out there, you know?
Well, but we don't look like dinosaurs or
yeah.
gophers or Bigfoot, or maybe a little like Bigfoot. But
the DNA proof will come out, I'm sure. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just what I try to lean, you know, that I lean to sometimes when it comes to extraterrestrials in that aspect.
Well, and when you read the stories, I mean, they just seem pretty blatant. You know, one of the things that we feel pretty comfortable about is when you're starting to talk about some of these very early stories, these creation myths, up to and including the creation of mankind, and I'm going to throw the flood in there because pretty much after the flood, things really change. The mythic line changes. So we're going to just go to the flood. But the stories read more like the stories of the gods, them telling their story, you know, like them telling the story of their summer vacation. and now we are retelling the story. And to bring it into a more, I'll say, contemporary-ish context, we have the story of Moses on Mount Sinai, and we have been retelling that same story since that time, almost verbatim since that time. And so, but that story doesn't read like a story about the gods. The gods were always fighting with each other, and they were rapists and pedophiles. They were terrible. Yeah. They were just plain awful. And if we were writing about the gods, we venerate God. So if we were writing these stories about gods, why weren't there like unicorns and rainbows
thrown in there? Yeah.
Why were they just so violent and nasty and power-seeking? That it just doesn't make sense.
Huh.
In the words of Judge Judy, if it doesn't make sense, then it's probably not true.
That's hilarious that you mentioned Judge Judy, because I was talking about Judge Judy earlier today before he came on. There's a comedian, Nick Kroll, out there, and then does this kill Fabrice, and he... It's really bad. It's really bad. But he's like, he always says, "Don't judge me, Judge Judy." And that's like the end of his segment. He always had. He's like, he's telling the story, and he's always, "Am I wrong?" And then he ends with, "Don't judge me, don't judge Judy." And I was like, oh, this is classic. But that's funny that you mentioned Judge Judy.
It was a psychic thing.
Yeah, it must be. I mean, little things happen, right? And that's what I like about doing this show, too, is that, come bringing people on that I want to actually hear from, and it always turns out well. I don't think I've ever had a disaster of a show. Well, I'm sure I've had a disaster or two. I'm sure there's plenty of listeners that can disagree with that, and many other things I say, but that's fine. That's fine. As long as you keep coming back next week to hear something else outrageous out of my mouth, I'm good with that. So we are just about up here. 5 minutes left to go. Let's go ahead and run down how everybody can find you and find the book, Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods.
Okay, so the best way they can is by going to soulhealer.com, www.soulhealer.com, the portal to everything, and Dr. Rita Louise, which includes Just Energy Radio, the Medical Intuition and Energy Medicine Training Program that I offer, my other books. There's tons of articles, a bunch of YouTube videos that are separate from the radio show on that site. You could hang out there for quite a while just looking at the stuff on that site. But if you buy the book directly from me versus Amazon.com, the book does come autographed. And if you do want it inscribed, just in the little comment area, put what you want, and we will be happy to handle it. Because we're good that way.
At no extra charge. No.
And that's free. And that's free.
You're going to get cash, you're going to get recharged on that. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I think it's interesting that there are some authors that, you can get the book, but if you want it autographed, it's like $10 more. What's with that? It's like, okay.
It took you 2 minutes, and you got a stack of them in your room. Just handle it, Or no, better yet, you probably already done a bunch of auctions and you didn't even do anything but spend about an hour signing your name as sloppily as possible,
Well, that's if it's even your autograph.
Oh, there we go. Dirty secrets. Yeah. That's for sure. But checking out your show, Just Energy Radio, here on Inception Radio Network, you do 2 guests a show, don't you?
It depends on the guest and depends on the topic. There are some guests that will only come on, like Russell Targ. I could only get him for an hour, and it's like...
Yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. You got Patty Greer on Crop Circles coming up on the 21st with Ed Kamarick. Both fantastic. Let's see. Russell Targ there on the 4th of next month with Jim Stein. You got Michael Cremo on there, Lynn Caston, Frank Joseph. You got all the good ones on here, Kathleen Martin, and I know I'm mentioning most of the UFO people, aren't I?
Yeah, pretty much.
The jig is up. But no, I don't really do a lot of the a lot of the the healing, there are alternative health. I just don't get into it that much, and it's rare to have people on. Well, not really rare, but every couple months I'll have one on. But it's definitely interesting to have on. And now I know why it's just energy radio, because you're a high energy person. You come on.
Yeah, that's it.
Or it's the coffee. It's the coffee.
But I just like to kind of keep it, mixed up. And there are shows, like one of the shows that I have coming up that I'm really excited about, actually a couple, that you mentioned, the health and healing that you didn't talk about. We have a show coming up where we're going to be talking about GMOs and their impact on us, which I think is a huge topic to bring up. And then I have somebody coming on, where is he? He's down here somewhere.
That's Jeffrey Smith with the GMOs.
It's Jeffrey Smith, but then I have Nick Tate. And I'm not seeing him. There he is, Nick Tate. And he has a book about Obamacare, which, is coming up, and it's going to hit us all. And it would be nice to kind of have an idea of what we're going to be getting into and its impact on us and, our health and benefits and, so I like to bring up things that I think are, good and appropriate. And
it definitely would be nice to know what's in that 1,500-page document, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's my point, because, I don't know about you. My husband has like a regular day job, and, his paycheck, I hit an extra 50 at the turn of the new year. We were not real happy with that.
Nope. You want to hear what's even worse? We got raises here and ended up losing. Still getting it deducted. It was a joke. It was ridiculous. Talking about pissed. Everybody was pissed.
Well, at least you got a raise.
Yeah, true, right?
He just gets to work overtime.
Yeah, there you go. You can get it back one way or another, right? That's what I always tell them. I'll get it one way. Either I'm leaving early or I'm working over. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
And hopefully no one at work is listening. My luck.
He didn't say that. He really didn't.
Just kidding. I am a very dedicated worker and love my job. But that's all for us tonight, Rita. Thanks for coming on. And is there anything? Oh, you got something going on here in June too. I saw up there. I didn't even get to.
I have something in April. What do I have in June? In April, I have the History Haunts and Legends Conference coming up, and we don't need to talk about the June thing. Just skip that.
There you go. Forget about it.
But the History Haunts and Legends, if you're in the Texas area, the conference is held in Jefferson, Texas, and it is the most haunted city in Texas and one of the top 10 in the country. And so it's by Louisiana, it's by Shreveport, so you can come, go to the conference, go do some gambling.
Yes.
It's all good.
Love gambling, that's for sure. Yeah, you got some people in the chat room said they've been to Jefferson, Texas. There you go. Nice.
It's Spooksville, USA. That's what I like to say.
Fantastic. There you go. Joe's killing me here to get out. So
okay. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody.
Love having you on. Thanks for coming on and rescheduling and dealing with that whole hassle. I hate doing it. Sorry.
Nope, not a problem. It was all good. Had fun.
Cool. Thank you. All right. That is us for tonight, ladies and germs. And yes, I said ladies and germs. It's that bad, folks. But we will be back next week with, let me look at the big board, Jim Stein. There you go. And that is all, Joe. Take us away and play the outro. Good night.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Mind Cemetery. You can join us every week